Welcome to the Environmental Transformation Podcast. I'm your host, Sean Grady, and today's guest is Lisa Foster. Lisa is a business coach and she is a leadership management consultant, and she's also affectionately known as the Bag Lady. She is an author as well, and we're here to talk about her new book, The Bag Lady, and her story of how she changed the way America shops. Welcome to the show, Lisa.
Thank you, Sean. Thanks so much for having me.
No, absolutely, absolutely. So excited to get this interview going. I know we had some troubles previously, but hey, we're here and let's get this thing going. Tell the listeners a little bit about your book and how you got started, and let's go into this a little bit so we can start there, and then we'll get into your background a little bit.
Okay. Well, the book is tells the story of my entrepreneurship journey, how I really just, became a purpose-driven entrepreneur because I I discovered the issue of plastic bags, and once I understood what all those plastic bags were doing to our environment, it hit my moral center and I couldn't sleep at night. We were using a billion plastic bags a day in the US in 2005 when I discovered these impacts, and a third of them escape our efforts to collect them into proper trash. So they are littered and end up in our environment, ultimately ending up in the ocean. The effects are devastating up and down our own food chain.
All
First of all,
right.
they're coming back to us, but devastating for our oceans, devastating for marine life.
Our natural
And I
resources are
just,
being depleted,
yeah, exactly.
right?
And so I decided I had to do something about it once I learned what that was. And I made a bet that when other consumers knew what the impacts were of all those bags, they would switch to reusable bags too. We had to give them a reason. The reasons were there. And so I started a company in 2005 to sell reusable bags. This was a year before Al Gore. So I had a lot of people tell me not to do it. I was an English teacher. I had no experience in business. I had no education in business,
Yeah.
but I just had a lot of moral energy around this cause. And I just dedicated myself to figuring it out. And
Uh,
so it was a little by hook and by crook. Um,
but
I
you made it.
failed a lot and learned every time, but I kept going. I just never quit. And my first year in business, standing out on the staircase overlooking the faculty parking lot, I sold 250,000 bags.
Yeah,
And
that was one aspect of the book and the story that I really found was really impressive. Like, you were making it happen. Here you are, you're a teacher, you're starting this business. And oh, by the way, you're on your teacher's breaks or your, prep periods, and you're in the back in the stairway and you're making phone calls and you're sealing some deals. How impressive is that?
I hit a nerve. I hit the zeitgeist just right. I think it was very I don't know. I was doing something right. I think all that passion came through,
Yep.
and I started calling small grocery stores, and they knew and they wanted an alternative, and I was there with an alternative just when they really wanted it. So it just moved up really fast. So from that first year, 250,000 bags, the second year 2 million bags, and the third year 8 million bags. And it was um overwhelming to hit that kind of exponential sales
Oh,
curve, and I just had to go full
yeah.
time really fast and figure a lot of things out.
Well, let's get into a little bit about that. Let's talk about this whole bag situation because it is so prevalent in society and in our economy and our shopping, modes of shopping. I mean, most of us go to the store today and we're still kind of, in this plastic bag or paper bag scenario. I mean, there's so much room for improvement for consumers to take a reusable bag to the grocery store or to the shopping center. There's still lots of room to improve here because I'm seeing lots of plastic bags still being in use, right?
Yeah, and I think it really differs from locality to locality. And when government puts in laws, it really helps a lot. But it begins with consumers, right? The laws are put in by people who are elected to do the people's will, and the people have to have the will first before really the laws get made. And so I really am all about learning what happens to all that plastic, and finding out what's your reason for trying to use a little less plastic, the toxicity of plastic, not only for marine life, but for ourselves and for our children, is really, I think, something that gives many of us pause. We think that it's just, oh, it's just a little bit of plastic. It's just one plastic water bottle. It's just one plastic bag. But when you start to realize how many plastic bags, how many plastic water bottles, we are exposed to plastic from the minute we put our toothbrush in our mouth.
Oh
Our
yeah.
milk and our orange juice come in plastic. The paper cartons are lined with plastic.
Everything when you think
The
about it.
the aluminum cans are lined with plastic. We are exposed until we go to bed at night on a mattress that is made of foam plastic, right? It's in our rugs, it's in our clothes, it's in our food. And you think, oh, it's just a little bit, but every single day, constantly,
Yeah.
maybe it's not as little as we think it is, right? And
No,
what are the effects
it's
on us? And they have been documented, um, affecting our health, our reproductive health, higher rates of cancer, lower rates of fertility, um, gender abnormalities across species, including ours. So, when you start to think about this is part of our everyday life, maybe we need to think about, maybe we want a little less of it in our life,
yeah.
and
I,
just
when I
make it
was when I was reading your book and you were laying that kind of justification groundwork at the beginning, I was like, when you really think about it, yeah, there are really good reasons, obviously. I mean, it's not just, we're polluting the earth, but there's this like reproductive and genetic issues and exposure to those types of chemicals that we're not really understanding the impact of right now. And they're starting to have some studies out there that are documenting and proving this. And so that was great justification, I thought, building that story in your book. But let's break from the plastic bag scenario. What about paper bags? Well, what are the challenges around that? Because I think there's a misconception of, well, paper's better for the environment than plastic. And is that really true?
look, it's certainly biodegradable if you think about it this way. Every plastic bag that you have ever used, that all of us have ever used, is still here on Earth. Every plastic straw, every piece of plastic you've ever touched is still here. We're either storing it in landfill or it's in our environment polluting our waterways.
Mhm.
Paper biodegrades, but I will tell you, it was the facts about paper bag that really pushed me over the edge, because I was reading about them, and I'm a paper bag user, right? I was always like, oh, I'm an environmentalist. I take paper bags.
Right.
Um, well, making a paper bag takes 4 times more global warming emissions than making a plastic bag. And then trucking them around, they're so much bigger and heavier, adds even more costs. And then if you recycle them, you have to add the transportation and the recycling and the chemicals in the recycling, which goes into our waterways and then back into, and then more transportation costs. And if you don't recycle them and they get into our landfill, it is kind of like a plastic bag. If it is dry and remains dry in a landfill is just really an open pit lined with concrete. That's
Sure.
all it really is. It's not anything fancier than that. It's a really big garbage can, acres of garbage. And we just throw more garbage on top. So if it doesn't get wet, it will not biodegrade at all. It will just remain. There are studies that show that newspapers from the 1920s are readable if you can dig down deep enough in
Take
a
the oxygen
landfill to
out and it
see
doesn't
them.
degrade. Right. I mean,
So
yeah.
they're still there. And if they do get wet, they do degrade. I'm not going to call it biodegrade. Basically, what they do is rot.
Mhm.
And they turn into methane, which is another global warming
Yeah,
Gas.
gas. That's another bad thing too, right? So when you think about it, the do-gooders with the paper bags thinking that they're do-gooding, that they're not really. I mean, it's just as bad as a plastic bag.
It made me so mad when I realized that, and as I say in the book, I was slamming drawers in the
Right.
kitchen, and my kids were afraid to come
They're like,
in for a
"Mom, what's going
cookie
on with
because
you?"
yeah, yeah, kids were afraid to come in for a cookie, because I would start ranting and raving about, recycling being an excuse for our overconsumption. And
Right.
really, the 99-cent plastic bag that makes 0 waste for 2 years
Yeah,
is just
or
a
more,
waste of
depending on how much you use them.
or more, right?
Right.
I mean, I know I had customers who sent me notes and said things like, I my first bag from you has just given out. It is 7 years old, 8 years old. Been using it weekly for years and years and
Wow.
years. So
Yeah.
imagine the kind of waste that you just and it's a 99-cent solution. It makes so much sense. It's actually more comfortable.
Well,
It's easier to bring into the house.
yeah, and I don't know about you, but I mean, most of us citizens, we go to the grocery store, and when you bring back all the groceries, you got a mound of plastic bags you got to put in a recycle bin or in the trash or whatever, because most people don't know this, but those little plastic bags that you get at the grocery store, they're not really that recyclable. They're not really made for recycling, unfortunately.
In most recycling centers, they jam up the machinery, so they are
Right.
not accepted in most recycling
Right.
um, areas. Now,
Right.
California did just pass a law last week
Okay.
requiring all plastic in the state to be compostable or actually recyclable at a center by in 10 years, by 2032. And
Mhm.
they are taxing and requiring the plastic industry to create products that really are recyclable and ways that we really can recycle them. And if not, they have to stop using them.
Well,
So,
I know if I go to Aldi's,
mhm.
Aldi's wants to charge me 25 cents a bag for a
Oh yeah,
paper bag, right?
they're
They don't even
expensive.
I don't even think they sell plastic bags, and either or you bring your own or you just put it in a box, a cardboard box that they're going to, recycle. And that's so you're paying for it one way or the other. You might as well bring your own bags. I've been kind of getting on this bag trick, and I've got a really nice recyclable, reusable bag. It's kind of made of like hemp,
Nice.
yarn, and then it's got a handle, like a tote handle, but it's also got a strap. I can put it on my shoulder if I got a bunch of stuff, and I can just walk around with it. I really like that. It's a really nice bag, but I really like the whole concept of recycle bags because it's reducing the waste that's going into my own trash at home. Because as consumers, I have to pay for my trash to go to the out in the front of the yard every week. And in my neighborhood, we have to buy stickers for each bag. It's $2 a
Okay.
sticker.
Okay.
So I have to pay to throw. Pay to throw is what it's called here.
Right. Right. To
And
throw.
if I can reduce my waste to one bag a week, I'm only $2 for my trash disposal versus increasing it.
Yeah.
So
Doubling
yeah,
or
let's.
tripling it.
The other thing I have noticed, and you may have noticed too, but some of the big grocery chains do have a recycling receptacles for the bags, so you can bring them
Yes.
back and drop them off. And I think, I mean, I don't know this, but I'm assuming they do properly recycle those, and that's one way we can recycle the bags, right?
Yeah, when you have enough of them all together, they're separated out of the other trash already,
Yeah,
they can compress them, and if they're uniform enough, they do get a pretty good product, which in a way, this is the beginning of a model for what we hope to see will in the future, and this is great for the plastic bag manufacturers, right? Imagine they would just pay to get that back and
yeah,
make new bags. It'd
get new
be cheaper
plastics.
than buying what they're buying on the market now from, China or Russia, wherever.
Right. No, absolutely. No, I agree with you. Well, so let's talk about the top 5 reasons to reuse a bag. You
Oh,
talked
great.
about it in the book. I was like, hey, this is great. Let's hit on these because people like there were some interesting facts on this.
Yeah, I'm gonna try to do this off the top of my head. I haven't
I
done
can
that for
help
a while,
you.
but
I can
I'm
help
gonna
you
try.
because I wrote them down.
Okay, good. I might need some help. I know number one, 14 plastic bags contain enough petroleum to drive your car a mile.
Wow. I
And
mean, just think about that for a second. That's a lot of petroleum that we're extracting out of our natural resources to create 14 bags that we could drive our car with petroleum fuel for 1 mile.
so you're thinking, if you add up the numbers a little bit, we figure 10 bags per person. So for a two-person household, that's 20. So you're talking about maybe 14 and maybe 20 miles a week equivalent that you're just throwing away, right? And
Mm-hmm.
that's a week. So you're talking about thousands of miles, like 1,000 miles you could drive on the plastic that you're throwing away in those bags. So
Well, let's
making that connection, I really wanted people to make that connection. Plastic is a byproduct of petroleum. That's how we get it.
well, the next big fact that was interesting is it kind of relates to this 14 bags for 1 mile. Americans use over 14 billion bags annually.
Okay, now that was my first tag in 2005. That was the number then. By about 2010,
Yeah.
the numbers were updated far bigger, about 10 times that,
Oh my gosh, really?
even more, 368 billion a year.
Oh
Basically,
my gosh.
a billion bags a day.
So how many miles could we drive with fuel from that? Oh my gosh.
And a third of them escape. So we're talking about 2 billion bags into our environment every week.
Right, right. No,
This
that's
is
just
a problem, right?
this is a huge problem.
It,
And I don't think people are thinking about it that much. I mean, some people are. I mean, like we're passionate about it. We're having a great conversation because we're recognizing this is a real problem. But the average person in society, I don't know that they're thinking through this like I'm just using my saran wrap to cover my food, or I'm using, my plastic bag when I go to the grocery store. I get that. Or everything that they purchase is wrapped in plastic, and why can't we just like take our own bags, take our fruit into the bag, and go from there? I don't it's changing a whole mindset of how should we live more sustainable, right? More sustainably.
you know what, Sean, that is exactly right. Once we start to connect those dots, once we start to see we're just one tiny piece, but magnify ourselves by the how many billions of people there are in the world now. There's like, what, 20
Yeah,
billion or something? I don't know
yeah,
how many billion people there are in the world now, but it's used, the numbers are staggering, right? Um,
yeah.
and
Well,
so you have to really, we all have to think about what do we want for ourselves, right? Do we want that? Do we want to tell our kids, yes, it was 20 bags a week all my life and thousands, the billions of bags that you yourself are taking that
yeah, I
will be
mean,
there
where's the
forever, that your
personal
children and your
ownership? There's
grandchildren have to store in landfill and have to clean up out of our
eventually
oceans.
exactly, eventually we got to have some personal ownership in this thing too, right? I mean, because if enough of us start to really care and enough of us start to really do our part, the ripple effect will kind of it'll take effect. It'll actually, we'll start to see decline in a lot of this. And I think that's what we need to have but there's, I think, a tremendous amount of education and more awareness that needs to be put out there, right?
I think so. I think so. I will say, I'm really happy to say that when I sold my company in 2017, well, let me start with when I started.
Yeah.
Estimates were that 3% of Americans were using reusable bags when they shopped. That number had not changed since 1970, in 35 years, right? So when I sold my company in 2017, our research indicated that 60% of Americans were using reusable bags most of the time when they shop. So from 3% to 60% is a huge number. A
That's
lot
a
of that is
huge,
driven
yeah.
a lot of that is driven by California and New York, which have statewide laws, and the awareness in some places is really high There are other along the coasts. I think that the awareness is very high because we're so dependent on our oceans, right? Those coastal cities are dependent on
Mhm.
what is going on in our marine, the marine world around us,
Right, right.
the marine environment. But there's a lot of places where people don't have the awareness. So I think it's a little uneven, and we have to really, yes, there is more education, and that's why I'm here today, and that's what you
Absolutely.
do,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely. That's right. That's why we're here. So I want to wrap up these three remaining five reasons. So there was 70% more global warming gases associated with making paper bags than plastic bags. So that was another reason to use reusable bags, which I found pretty interesting. Like, wow, okay, so there's more global warming impact to making paper bags than plastic bags. Okay, that's concerning.
Yeah. Yeah, if you're an
Plastic,
environmentalist, you're thinking you're making an environmental choice, that's something you have to factor in.
yeah, yeah, and then you got paper bags, and I would also argue plastic bags. They're not biodegrading in landfills, so there's that situation. And the last one was cities spend up to 17 cents per bag in disposal costs. Let's break
Who
that down
think
just
these
a
bags,
little bit.
I
Talk
mean,
about that.
let's just think about that for a minute, right? If you think you've got a free bag, think again.
Right,
So, first of all, the store is giving you a free bag, but you're paying for that bag,
it's
right?
baked in
They're not giving
somewhere in
you
some
anything.
cost.
What they do is they hide the cost
Absolutely,
in apples, oranges, bananas, light bulbs, milk, all the other things that we buy.
there's a markup.
Everything you buy in a market
Yep.
has a little bit of that paper, that plastic bag cost factored in as overhead, right? So
Mhm.
that's a hidden cost that we are not aware of. And just start to think about who is paying for that trash, right? Who is paying that 17 cents per bag for cleanup, landfill, trucking them around, and trying to dispose of them correctly? The numbers now, the most recent numbers indicate $40 billion worldwide go to cleaning up plastic and storing plastic. And imagine what we could do worldwide with an extra $40 billion. We
Oh
have
yeah.
a housing crisis. We have food crises. We have so many problems we can solve. Is that really, do we really want to be spending that
Right.
much money
It's
on managing? And they're never going to go away. The plastic ones are going to be there forever. It's going to be $40 billion a year
for a long time
forever.
until we start to reduce our use and dependency on plastic bags. I mean, I think that's a big number. That's a lot of impact on the environment and actually our own taxpayer cost, right? I
Exactly.
mean, we don't
You are
realize
paying it.
we're paying for it.
You
Yeah,
can pretend you're not, you can close your eyes, but the fact is,
we're
those are
paying.
all taxpayer funded dollars, every cent of it, because that's where it comes from,
Yeah, no, I know that's crazy. Well,
city by city.
so there's a lot of facts about single use in bags here, but what else we want to talk about and cover in your book? I mean, Lou, what else is in your book that we want to talk about? Like talk a little more about maybe your journey as an entrepreneur, or learning how to overcome objections, and basically people telling you, no, I don't really need that, or shutting you out.
Well, yes, there was quite a bit of that. You know, I think a lot of us want to make a difference. And in fact, all the studies say that, like 70% of adults want to make a difference in our
Yeah,
community, in somewhere, in
right.
our life, in our job, right? But I think most people just say, well, I can't do, what can one person do? So I really think that my story is really an illustration of what one person can do. What you can do. Look at what, Rachel Carson did the research, wrote a book, and changed and got DDT outlawed. One person can do a lot, but you have to be willing to put the work in. You
Yeah,
have to be willing to fail. You have to be willing to smile at your naysayers and just keep going. You have to not want to quit no matter what. You have to really be dedicated to what it is that you're trying to do. And all I just wanted to do, and it was the company name, it was my mission, it was what I lived every day, saving the world one bag at a time. really trying to bring it down to that human level, that one person, that one choice, the choice you're making today. And so I would love for people to walk away with a sense of inspiration that if they want to, yes,
They can
I'm
make a
nobody
change.
special. I was an English teacher. I made a difference. You can make a difference. I would
Yeah.
love that. And the other thing that I'd like people to walk away with is how important it is that consumers are willing to pay that little bit more, that 99 cents or that 5% or whatever it is. Just not talking about a lot, we're not talking about a ton more, but that little tiny premium, that little tiny premium for a more environmental product is going to drive the entire economic engine to change the kind of products that we see in our world. So if you want to see more environmental products, choose environmental products now because that funds the innovation. It tells people I'm a green I'm a green I'm
Fire.
an environmentalist and I'm a green shopper. I
Right.
will pay that little bit more to make sure that the people, the companies I'm working with are doing the right thing too. And then together, the consumers supporting those companies who are doing the right thing. It's a really powerful model for how we are going to change our world. We can talk about our problems forever, and we do. We have a 24/7, 365 news cycle about our problems.
Yeah.
This is the way we're going to solve most of them. Consumers, businesses deciding what they want. Forget the government, forget the laws. If you
It's the
want it,
yeah, it's the consumers, it's the investors. I mean, we've
yeah.
been doing this podcast now for just about, well, it's been 2 years now. And one of the trends that we've been seeing in the industry is that, under around finance, around investing, the consumers and the investors are driving companies to make the change to be more sustainable. I mean, one thing that popped up, to me that just really struck me is now we have executives in these big, large corporations being incentivized to meet ESG goals as they're part of their bonus package instead of having, meeting production profitability goals. I mean, I'm sure that's part of it, but they're really going to get their bonuses on ESG performance. And that is a game changer. We've never had that before.
It is completely a game changer, and it is because it aligns the CEO pay, right, and his motivation with what consumers want. Because the reason boards do that is because they know the future of all of these companies, the future of our economy depends on us creating a more sustainable model.
Right.
So
Right.
if they do ESG, if they are committed to their communities and responsive to their environment,
Yeah.
it's a better long-term business model. They're making more money. They are stronger and more resilient. They're going
Mhm.
to outlast their competitors. The competitors who are not doing that are going to be left in the dust in 5 years or 10 years
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
they're not aligning with their customers.
Well, you're right. And there's a big change there. So one of the things I liked about when I was reading your book is your little bag tag, that you started to add to your bags was really cute and clever. Talk about how you created your, saving the world one bag at a time bag tag. I thought those were really cool.
Yeah, so I knew it was a new product. People would need to know what it's about,
Right.
right? So on the front of the tag, it just said, it's the perfect bag for groceries and shopping and saving the world one bag at a time. So I just hit them at their heart on the front. The front of the tag, I
Boom.
really thought about the front of the tag and the back of the tag like a cereal box, right?
Yeah.
Like that Wheaties guy, that Wheaties athlete looking so fit. Like, okay, that's the emotional pull. Um, we all want to save the world for 99 cents. Sure, I'll save the world. Like that is easy.
Yeah.
And then the
That's no
back of
skin
it,
off their back.
and the back of it had those top 5 reasons to do what they want to do anyway,
Right.
right? And then they're like, there was the education. I put that on every single bag. And that wasn't my cost. My competitors weren't doing that. They were putting this tiny, tiny little white thing with a little barcode on it, and that was it. I'm
Right.
like, "No, no, no. I am here to educate. I
We're gonna
am
brand
saving the
this and
world one bag
educate
at a
it.
time.
That's right.
I can only make this change if I educate my consumers." So I worked with buyers really carefully when they put them in the store. I said, "You have to have it at the checkout stand when they need it."
Yeah.
That's the main thing. And I wanted it right there. You're waiting in the checkout stand
Yeah.
line.
Right. Reading the
And as you're
magazines, checking out
waiting,
the candies, you know.
and there's a little tag there, "Oh, saving the world one bag at a time. Turn it around. Top 5 reasons. 99 cents. I'll take 2."
You just
It was
sold them.
just a consumer choice. And
Yeah.
it was a sales thing. And I really, I made that investment. It was expensive and but my heart was in it.
Yeah, no, I loved it. And I really think that is probably one of those things that helped you get to the tipping point. Let's talk about the tipping point in
Oh,
this J
yeah.
curve of exponential growth because I was reading the story and you started out, shipping all your merchandise to your house and loading up your living room or your dining room full of boxes, and then your husband's looking at you going, "Lisa, what did I get myself into?"
Yeah, he did. But I always said, like, he was so good. He looked at me like I was insane, but he didn't say anything, which was so good. He was just like, "I'm going back to football. Deal with your bags.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna be over
Over
here."
here, if you need me to help move, I guess I'll help, but
And he was great. But yeah, I took them all in there and I started selling. So the tipping point was a strategy. Somebody told me about the book and I read it. This is a book by Malcolm Gladwell. And he says there are 3 things you need to do to start a trend. And, companies try to do this all the time. And I was like, all right, let's see what those 3 things are. One, a sticky idea. And I thought, well, I don't know. I had a lot of people saying me, Americans will never bring their bag back to the store. That is European. They told me. They would go, no, that is European. We don't do that. And I'm like, well, maybe if they knew what I know, maybe.
yeah, maybe not.
Um,
Right.
so you need a sticky idea. It was doing this product was doing, and it took over Ireland 90% of the product in 1 year. They had a tax. They had a tax on plastic bags, 5 cents, and single use bag use dropped
Yeah, no one want to
90%.
pay for that.
It was unbelievable. It was like a stone. And then Australia was going reusable. When I was there, that's where I found it. And they were moving toward 90% without a tax because the government was promoting the connection between our environment and plastic throwing away our plastic.
Mhm.
So the government was doing that work. We didn't have the government doing that work, but I knew that work had to be done. So there's the sticky idea and all of those facts on the bag and saving the world one bag at a time, that made it sticky. And then you need super connectors. And I thought, well, I don't have any super connectors. I just have my friends. Well, all my friends
You
connected me
had a
to
pretty good
everybody.
network.
Yeah, but even my friends connected me to even better friends and friends, and I got to the newspaper, and the media really was the super connector. I got to my local, this tiny little newspaper here on Martha's Vineyard. Um, a very local paper picked up this story, and I had people from Ace Hardware calling me. I had people from universities calling me. That was really the super connector that made it blow up in a big way, right?
Right.
And I didn't have that starting out, but I did talk my way into the newspaper offices and say, "Hey, you guys have to cover this." Um, and then, so you need super connectors, you need a sticky idea, and then you need a context. This needs to be in the zeitgeist somewhere. And when I started, I wasn't sure it was really the right context, but 2005, when I started, was the year that Priuses went to the Oscars with A-list talent. Like Leo DiCaprio showed up at the Oscars in one of those tiny little early
Yeah.
Priuses that looked like a
Right.
VW Bug.
Yep.
Um, and they had to kind of like, they were all big guys, right? So they were like kind of unfolding themselves from the back seat of these little tiny cars. And that made a pretty big splash. And I thought, well, if Priuses are going to the Oscars, maybe reusable bags aren't far behind. And the next year, 2006, was when Al Gore came out with An Inconvenient Truth. And that made household warming a household word. It just made global warming something that pretty much everybody had heard about and was thinking,
Mhm.
this is something that probably is happening. And for 99 cents, it was pretty, that was the context that I needed,
Right.
right? For a 99-cent product, that was an easy entry point. Now we do have people who are really buying um, electric cars. The price has gone down, the effectiveness have gone up, and the price of gas is going through the roof. People are buying electric cars, but back in the day, 15 years ago, electric cars were few and far between, and they weren't
Sure.
really that great. So
Right.
we're all moving in those kind of directions, but that context really allowed things to just blow up. And I got all of those three conditions, and suddenly I hit the hockey stick curve. I hit, from a quarter of a million to 2 million to 8 million. It's
In
just
3 years?
in 3 years.
Wow.
In three
Wow.
years, starting from, yeah, like the back the back
So
stick.
really, after the first year, you're kind of figuring everything out. You're getting up your exporter, your buyer, you're getting your connections with the products over in China, and that was a big piece that really helped you start the business, is your connections that you made, fortuitously with some of those people over there, right? To kind of get you going. How
You
did that
can
work?
you can say it was fortuitous, and maybe it was. How come I'm not
Yeah,
in?
getting a little blurry there. There you
I
go.
know. There we go. Um, Maybe it was fortuitous. I did find a fantastic supplier,
Right.
but I worked very hard on that
Yeah.
relationship. And this is what I do now as a coach, is helping people understand that the person to person connection in business, I don't care if they're from China, India, Timbuktu, or Kalamazoo. I don't care where they're from. If you develop these relationships, build trust, build empathy, understand what their problems are, because you have to help them solve their problems if they're going to serve you.
Right.
You can't do business if you are not focused on the people who are working for you, because you're not doing it. They're doing it.
Yeah.
You're there to
Right.
inspire them. You're there to understand their problems and remove the barriers and give them the resources to do what they need to do really well.
Sounds
And
like a little leadership coaching coming out of you right now, too.
and that is a formula that works, and we know it works. It's replicated everywhere. We know that's what leadership really is.
Right.
Right? That's what
Right.
you can buy all these books about leadership, and Michael Jordan and Marshall Goldsmith and this and that and the other thing. I find people buy 6 or 7 of those books, and they're so confused about what leadership is. I'm like, dude, it's about connecting with the people you are
Building
working
trust,
with.
connecting, understanding their passions and what's driving them. And
Listen more than you
yeah,
talk.
right. Well, we're
Right?
gonna get to that question. I've got a question about that later, but let's get into this.
Okay.
So you went to this J curve, the second year, like, well, the first year was just like you're really understanding what you're doing with the business. Then all of a sudden, you got to feel like the second year was a complete exponential jump. You more than doubled your first year. Like,
Oh
oh
no, from
crap.
a quarter million to 2 million is like
Right.
5 times. I did
Yeah.
5 times as much.
And then the third year, you're like,
4 times as much again. It
what
was insane.
happened? Like, oh my gosh, I don't know if you could sleep at night with all that
Well,
pressure going on, all the
so
sales.
yeah, you'll see it in, I mean, I was teaching that first year, right? So there was
Right.
a time when I was processing bag orders until 1 o'clock, 1:30 a.m. and boxing them up and sending them off, to people, and getting up at 6 a.m. to get out to the valley in LA and teach my 7:40 class.
Mm,
So there was really the first 3 years, and then even when I quit teaching, um, my numbers were getting so big so fast. I really didn't sleep that much for the first 3 years, but you just keep your head down,
You got to
and
do
that's
what
what I
you,
talk
yeah,
about. You solve your problems every day, one by one. You don't get overwhelmed. You don't quit.
right,
There's going to be problems. Just say, all right, how do I get around this one? And
right.
you try a few things. Something's going to work, something's not going to work. It's what we call failing forward. You try something. If it doesn't work, all right, something more than you did before, even if what you know is that doesn't work. Let's try something else.
Yeah, yeah,
And you
yeah,
get
yeah.
smarter about how you're using technology. And by the way, the technology is even better today. I mean, we have apps that will do everything for you.
Oh
So
yeah, they'll make your labels for you and set up the
use it.
shipping and right
Yeah,
now.
use all of that, right? Like, lean into your technology.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, when you talk about, some of your mistakes and, share with the listeners a little bit about, some of the how you navigated that at times when you were, faced with challenges of making a mistake, but overcoming and moving on.
So I talk in the book. I mean, I'm not sure if you're there, if you're kind of in the middle of the book, you haven't gone to the chapter where I really make a big mistake. And when entrepreneurs talk about mistakes, they always say, fail early, fail fast.
Mhm.
And I say in the book, maybe I failed too late. I did get to a point of mission drift where I started to drift away from that core mission of saving the world one bag at a time and offering somebody something a little more fashion forward. And it really was mission drift. And I got very excited about it. I put a lot of money into it, and ultimately it failed.
Mhm.
And I was left with a mess that I wasn't sure I could get out of. It was a really dark time for me. I'm not going to lie. Um, I'm grateful to my husband that even though he didn't help me solve it, he let me know that he believed in me to solve my problems. And he was always there, but he was like, you can do this. You'll do it. You'll be
Yeah.
fine. He always just said, yeah, you'll be fine. You'll do it. If you've come this far, yeah, I think you can finish it.
Yeah.
And his belief in me was really important. And I just, again, I got up every day and went to the office and just started solving the problems. The first thing I had to do was just stop any money from going out that wasn't bringing money in, you
Yeah.
know, and that was quite a process to unwind everything that I'd been working toward for a year and a half. But I unwound it really quickly. And you make tough decisions, and it was hard. I had to fire people. People quit on me. Um, I ended up being a solopreneur selling bags from my house. It was lonely. I had 3 or 4 years. I mean, I knew what I needed to do to sell the company, but I was sitting in a room alone selling grocery bags. It had all gone to email by that time,
Mhm.
right? So there were days when I didn't talk to a human being at all. Thank goodness for my dog. Um, we had long conversations, but my
How should
husband
I
would,
solve this problem?
yeah,
They
right?
look at you like, well,
The loneliness was brutal. And sometimes my husband would come home and I'd look at him and I'd say, take me out. I just need to have people. I just need to see somebody. Even if I don't talk to
yeah,
them, even if it's just a waiter, I need to talk to somebody. Um, so, but I knew what I had to do, and I really put my head down and leaned into the unglamorous part, just maintain your accounts and sell back just bags
sell
that
those
your
bags
product
one bag at
does
a
not
time, right?
sell itself.
Right.
You
So
have to be
so
out there selling it, and so I did.
so when you get to the point where you're like, "Hey, I think I'm ready to, step away." I mean, what was that decision like?
It was tough. It was I didn't set out to be a commodity trader all my life.
Yeah.
I didn't really want to be a purveyor of grocery bags as, like, my childhood dream.
Right.
Um, I did want to change the world, and when I got to the point where I had the number shows 60% of Americans were using bags, reusable bags, most of the time when they shopped, I was like,
Hey,
maybe I've
I've
done
contributed a big part of that, right?
maybe I've done what I set out to do. Maybe I did change the world a little bit. And
A lot.
so um I started to think, well, now what do I want to do? And having had already made a mistake of that mission drift, I just thought maybe it's better to end this chapter and see what else is in store for me. And I, I I learned what it would take, what I needed to do to get the business sold. It was a 3-year process of getting my numbers. I was just held myself accountable for hitting sales numbers, revenue numbers, keeping my expenses down, um, all of those things, being super responsible, being really careful with my vendors and the people who worked with me to transport them back and forth. I wanted to be good for them, and I used to say, everybody on my supply chain eats, but no one's getting fat, including me.
Yeah.
We're all taking a reasonable bite, and that's what you get.
Yeah.
And that really worked. And I was in it with them, and we all kept pretty tight belts, and it made us really competitive. So when I sold my business in 2017, my numbers were going way up because we're a really good product. I was very insistent that the quality remain high, and I was learning all kinds of tricks to keep my expenses down.
Yeah.
And my number, I was killing it on sales numbers, and it was like the perfect time to sell. So the sales process was really difficult. Once I had a buyer, which took me, almost 9 months from the time I decided and started this process to when I got a real buyer. Um, then I kind of had a boss,
Yeah.
but I was used to being the boss.
Yeah.
So that was a tricky time to navigate, really listening to where he wanted to go with it. And if I didn't agree, it wasn't my place to say it, and biting back what I wanted to say. But we got through that process, and this company continues to this day. So, um,
That's great. I mean, it's still on mission then. It's still on mission, right? One
it's
bag at a
still on
time,
mission,
saving the
one
world.
bag at a time.
So, if you could do it all over again, what would you do differently?
Wow. You know, I would like to have avoided that really terrible time, but I think even that I needed to do. I think I would have done it all exactly the same way. I was in it with my whole heart. And I think that's the only way I could really do it. If I went after the money, if I had become an entrepreneur trying to make money, I would have failed because it's just too hard, right? You have to
Right.
have some mission that really is going to
Driving
sustain
you.
you
Yeah.
through the ups and downs, because it's going to go up, it's going to go down. The money's going to come, the money's going to go.
Right.
Um, you have to, if you're really just focused on the money, um, it wouldn't have worked for me. Right. So and that purpose driven entrepreneurship is such an important part of where our whole culture is going, what they teach in schools. Like, I didn't know that, but that's what they teach in schools. Do something that you really care about, because you're going to really do it. You will overperform if you really care. Help the people you're working with care about you, about them, about how this is changing the world. And I just,
That's
look, I did things wrong, but I own it, and that's how we
Hey,
learn too, trial
everybody
and error.
does. Everybody does, but the bad, the good outweighs the bad. I mean, you did amazing stuff. I mean, you basically changed the way America thinks about shopping, with this whole reusable bag concept. I mean, I'm sure there were other providers out there trying to do something similar, but you took something that you were passionate about. You created a business out of this. You sold millions of these darn things.
All with that tag, every single one of them
Yeah,
was educating a consumer somewhere,
I love it. And
right?
and that
And
is
there were other people, but they weren't doing that. And I
right.
think that really was a differentiator for me.
Well, absolutely. I mean, it really helped you rise up into, the stratosphere of, reusable bags, and leading this charge. I mean, it still needs to be done. There's still more education that needs to be going on, right? I mean, in society, we need to get off the dependency of these darn plastic bags. It's too easy, and it's too bad for the environment.
Yeah.
Well, okay. So one thing you've transitioned into, you've written a book about this. This is great. I'm this book is very great, very good. I think we're going to give an opportunity to have the listeners, if you send your email and sign up for our email distribution, the first five listeners can get a free book. But one of the things I wanted to talk about is you're now doing leadership consulting as a new business. Let's talk about that. You've kind of transitioned to another new role in life, and what's going on with that, Lisa?
You know, as I said, that emotional intelligence, that really taking care of the people, being mission driven, being, really paying attention to how you feel about things,
Mhm.
is what helped me beat the odds. Startups, the statistics are that 9 out of 10 startups fail, and they're worse. Even the odds are worse for somebody like me who had no experience, no business education, and really just focusing on the people and on that purpose was a recipe for success. And so now I help other people do the same thing. I help them focus on their people, understand their place in the mission, whether they're in a large organization or their own entrepreneur. I work with people, in big banks and big, in solar, and I love really working with people who are in wind, solar, those kind of renewable biotech. These are the people who are solving the problems every
Sure.
day that we have. So it's easy for them to find their own place in that, um, in what they're doing, and the meaning in that. And I help them really get the people part right, caring about people. It's easy to care about people and be nice and be a good boss, when things are going great. But when things are going tough, that's when you really know who's really a leader and who's a boss, and you get different. If you go in every day and boss people around, you're going to get kind of minimal results. But if you go in every day and you lead people to their best self, and what I was saying before, give them what they need, remove the barriers, give them the resources, give them the time, give them the people, give them the knowledge, give them the space to learn it. Um, People will overperform for you time after time after time. Most of us want to please our boss. We want to please, like we want to please our parents, like we want to please our family, like we want to take care of our family. Our work is an extended family. When you approach it that way, performance is kind of becomes second nature. People really start to make a change. And it's really exciting for me now as a coach to see other people making some of the discoveries that I made and taking that out into their world and finding extraordinary success, breaking through barriers they never thought they could, seeing their pathway to positions of leadership that they never really even imagined for themselves. Suddenly, they can see those positions of leadership and know how to get there and know what they can bring and offer to people. It's not about them, it's about what they can offer the other people around them. And when they start thinking like that, they are seen as a leader and they do get promoted because they're worth it.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's great. I mean, I'm sure that the your clients are, receiving full benefits of your experience, and emotional intelligence is something that people really need to start thinking about. I mean, it's probably a little not covered as much in leadership as it needs to be, and
Mm.
it helps in sales and marketing. You want to, be a good successful, salesperson. You really need to connect with those people. I mean, you're speaking my language there, because I'm in sales and I need to be able to understand how to connect with my customers. And that's one of the things. If I don't understand and listen, I can't be successful to help meet their needs, right?
Right. That was 100%, Sean. I could not say it better. And that's, yeah, like I was saying, there's all these leadership books and things and programs and whatever. It really does come down to understanding what you feel, being secure in who you are, and leading from your own heart, really caring about the people around you and giving them what they need to succeed. And when that happens, it's that is really true leadership. It's not a fancy thing. Uh, it's not a book. It's not
Yeah.
there's no jargon. There's no BS. It's just real people to people, building relationships, caring about others, and helping other people succeed.
Yeah, yeah, it's the golden rule type stuff that you just got to get to the basics, right?
It really is, right? It's everything your mom taught you, right?
That's right. Well, hey, Lisa, this has been a fantastic interview. I can't thank you enough for coming on. I know that your book is extremely successful so far. I mean, it's you've got such a great story here. A woman entrepreneur. You're leading an industry. Probably we didn't touch on. You probably had some challenges with some of that
Oh yeah.
aspect of your business, and but you did it. You overcame it. You just raised above. Now you're in the new leadership coaching, which is great. I'm going to put contact information on my website for the people how to get a hold of you, contact you through your website, and all that good stuff. And then for the listeners today, if we got 5 listeners that go online and sign up for our newsletter, the first 5 will also give away, we'll give away one of the books for Lisa's Bag Lady book to those listeners, the lucky listeners. And I'm sure you'll really enjoy that. And
And if you don't win one, they're on sale at Amazon right now. So,
there you go. Yeah.
just go grab one if you're looking for that daily dose of inspiration and how you can make a difference in your world and your community. It's a really great way to just, easy summer read. Just read it and enjoy it and get inspired to do something that you want to do, something you're really passionate about, however small, however large, whatever it is.
And I will say it's a very well written book. Lisa is a English teacher, former English teacher,
It's
so
a
it's
fun read.
it's a good
It's
read.
easy to read. You just kind of flow along, and you go with me on the highs and the lows, the whole roller coaster, and um, there's an emotional ride. It was a wild ride for me, and if you want to just get a taste of what that was like, yeah, pick up the book. It's a good story. It's a lot of fun. So,
Yeah.
Bag Lady, I hope all your listeners get a chance to take a look.
Well, we're gonna get the message out. We'll get it out next week early, and we'll share it on social media, and we'll get our networks all lit up with this episode.
Thank you so much, Sean. Thank you so much for everything you do and doing this every week.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. We'll talk to you soon.
Okay, bye.